All right. So this is going to be this is largely just going to be a review for most people. So let's do jsreview.js. This is largely going to be a review for most people, but I just want to make sure that we're all 100% on the same page when it comes to all things JavaScript. So there are basically two basic data types in JavaScript. One of them is called primitive, and then the other one is called objects. So primitive data type is things like strings and booleans and numbers and things like that. Actually, why don't we just call out all the different data types that we know? Go ahead. String. What is a string?
It's a collection of words and paced by quotations.
It doesn't actually.
Characters.
Yeah, it's like anything inside of quotes.
Yeah.
It could have numeric. It could have numeric with string.
Yeah, symbols too.
Yeah, you can have literally anything inside of a quote. A single or double quote is a string. What else do we have?
Boolean.
Boolean.
True, false.
True, false. Okay. What else do we have? Undefined. Okay. What else?
Numeric.
Numeric. What is numeric?
The integer, it could be complicated like double, where you'll have decimal places, much larger numbers. It could be.
Yeah, so numeric is like any number, and underneath that we have different things. We have integers. What are integers?
1 through 100, or 0 to whatever 32,000.
Yep. Yeah, we have integers, which for the purposes of us, we'll just say is whole numbers. We have floats. What are floats? Decimals. What else we got?
Constants.
That's it.
Well, you got constants.
We have
Currency.
What was that, Michael?
Currency.
Currency. Yeah, that's also true. Let's. I'm thinking a little bit more primitive than that before we get to like currency and things.
A bit. A very small number. Up to 256.
Bits. Okay. String, boolean. I'm just thinking of things that we need to know for now.
Object.
I think that's good for now. So we have strings, we have booleans, we have undefined and nulls, we have numbers and things of that nature. How about things that are like objects, a little bit more complicated? There are different data types.
Yeah, arrays and objects.
All right, array. What's an array?
It's a group of elements.
Mm-hmm.
That could have, like, say, an index.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we have arrays. They're basically things that it's a container that's defined by two square brackets, opening and closing square bracket. You put anything inside of here. You can have a number, you can have a string, you can have a null in here if you'd like.
An array.
5. You can have another array inside of here with like 1, 1, 2. You can have another array inside of it, so on and so forth. An array is basically just a container that holds anything. What's the important thing about an array that people need to know?
First in like the order, the sequence.
Okay. Yeah, array keeps track of indexes, so certain things are going to be at certain points all the time. You can kind of think of it as like one of those big pillboxes for that. My wife told me the other day she wants to get a pillbox so she can keep track of her pills. I was like, you're not even 30. Like that's generally reserved for an older culture, but she said it's useful. So I was like, all right, that's fine. So the idea is kind of like Sunday pills are always going to be in Sunday's location. Monday pills will always be in Monday's location. Like certain things inside of your array are always going to it's indexed, so it's always going to be good. It's always going to be like at the same place. What's the other type of what's another common data structure? Starts with an H.
If you guys have vectors.
All right.
We do,
Hierarchy?
but this starts with an H.
You guys.
Hierarchy.
Hierarchy. What else?
Index.
There's an array. It holds key value pairs. Have we not dealt with hashes yet? Yeah. Or JavaScript objects?
Yeah, we did. Interpret.
Yeah. It's basically like maybe like VIN number 4FT2, etc. goes to a 2004 Camry.
I'm still speaking Python. I was totally thinking dictionary when you said that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, they're all. So it's like it's a Ruby hash. It's a Python dictionary. It's a JavaScript object. But at the core of it, it's inside of curly braces, and it just keeps track of key value pairs. So a specific key corresponds to a specific value. So if you were thinking like a database of like the DMV, if you had to keep a database of all the different cars, like every single car has a specific VIN number, and one VIN number belongs to a specific car. Now, the difference between an array and a hash is that array keeps track of index and hash does not. So you know that when I ask for this array every single time, the first thing is always going to be 1, the second thing is always going to be string, and so on and so forth. And when it comes to a hash, let's say I had like 5 or 6 different VIN numbers to 5 or 6 different cars, it could come back in different ways each time. But like the data inside of it is always going to be reliable. Let's talk quickly about variables. So variables, I've seen everyone do this so far, like var name equals John. Now so I've declared a variable. The variable's name is going to be John, and the value every single time that I call it is going to be just John, like this. Let's actually bring this.
Semicolon?
No, you could have a semicolon or not have a semicolon. It's up to you. So inside of Chrome, one thing that's really cool is if you go to Chrome Developer Tools by holding Option Command I, all of these Chrome Developer Tools will show up. And then this is actually just a JavaScript console right here. So I have a var. Let's say var name equals John. And then if I call name in the future, every single time John is going to show up.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
The command I thing that you just did, is that the same as right-clicking and going to inspect?
Yep.
Same
Yeah,
thing?
yeah. I'm just faster on the keyboard than with the mouse. That's all. Yeah, you can totally right-click and go to inspect element.
It's just better than
Yeah.
I do the other one when I have a mouse. I just don't have a mouse right now. So as of right now, this is the old school way of writing variables, and I want to kind of get this in people's minds ahead of time so that when we get there in about 10 weeks, you're not totally lost. It's actually, instead of doing var name at this point, it's actually let and const. So let name equal John. Is this, if I do the same thing, let's say let name equal Mike. Mike has already been declared. I can't overwrite it. So instead of actually doing var now, it's going to be let and const. Let is for things that can change, and const is for things that generally remain constant. That's why it's a const. So it's like, for me, like I probably would have a const called force of gravity, and then I think that's like 9.8 or something. It's like that's something that doesn't change. The force of gravity on Earth is a constant. Like that is always going to remain the same. But your name might change over time. You can get married. You could be trans or something like that, and you choose your new name or something like that. So just so it's not going to be var anymore. Let is for things that can change. Const is for things that cannot change. What type of typing is this? The name
Camel case.
Camel case. Why is it called camel case?
Because it goes up and down.
It goes up and down, yeah. So it's for camel case variables, you shove all the words together. Every single new word besides the first one is going to have a capital letter. It's kind of like a camel. It's like goes up and so on and so forth. Even though I've also thought that camel case should have a capital F at the beginning because it's the head, and then it goes to the hump. But that's not how it works. So yeah, we have camel cased for all things JavaScript. When we get to Ruby tomorrow, it's going to be everything is going to be called snake case. So force of gravity is not going to look like that. It's going to be force of gravity like this. Snake case meaning everything lowercase, separated. The new words are separated by underscores. But we'll get to that tomorrow. All right, let's talk quickly about logical operators. So if something is true and true, what's the result of this? True. Let's say true or true. What's gonna be the result?
True.
True. What about false and true?
True.
False. So this is actually a great way of the way that I try to think about this, right? Is let's say that you're going out on a date with somebody. If you are having a great time and your date is having a bad time, are you having a good time overall?
No.
No, that's not going to. So it's like if you or your date is not having a good time, what's the result?
No, somebody's not having a good. You're not having a good.
You're not. You as a collective pair are not having a good time. The only way for you to have a good time on this date is if you are on a date with somebody, you're having a great time, and your date is having a great time as well. At that point, you collectively are having a good time. So again, this true and true is always going to return you true. Like if there's a single false in here, it's not a good date.
But false or true would be true.
False or true. This gives me true. True or false gives me true as well. Yeah. So the and specific one is you can think of a date like both parties have to be having a great time in order for the date to be a success. Otherwise, it's not going to be a terribly good success.
And after years of dating, it's always false.
It's always false.
All right, how's that?
All right. Let's talk quickly about parameter passing and creating a function. So how do I create a function? Like, let's say I want, what is a function, I guess? If you had to explain to a 5-year-old, what's a function?
A block of code that does a specific action.
Yeah, I would like that one. Yeah, it's a block of, I'm going to add in reusable code that does some specific thing. All right, so let's say we want to say hello to somebody at all times, right? So if I'm going to create a function and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say hello. And I'm just going to say console log hello. Very, very basic. So I've created a function. The function is called say hello, doesn't take any sort of parameters. And when I run it, everything between the two curly braces is going to be run. So this opening curly brace is saying like all the code after here is going to be run, and then this closes it out. So for us, it's just going to be console log hello. At this point, I can just say hello, and I can invoke it, and then it just returns me hello. And I can say that, call it over and over again. It's reusable. Also, it's kind of unfortunate, but the new way of writing functions is actually not using the function anymore. It's using something called fat arrow. I would just kind of recommend using this because like everyone who knows JavaScript is going to understand what you mean by var. But that's kind of like the old school way of thinking. Like everything now is moving toward let and const. So I kind of want you to start using that as well. Everyone's going to know what function whatever means, right? It's still going to be okay. You can still write like that, but most people are starting to write with these ugly. I think they're ugly. They call them fat arrow function. There are a lot of benefits, which I won't kind of get into at this particular point. But essentially, we had let's take a look at this this multiply here. Actually, yeah. Let's say we're gonna have a new say hi or something like that is going to equal some sort of function console log. So before, this is what the old school way of writing functions used to look like. You declare a function, you say what it's called. If it takes any parameters, that's good or whatever, and then the block of code. The new one is basically saying I'm letting a variable called say hi equal, this is the same parameter passing as this up here, and then this fat arrow, or also called a hash rocket, and then the block of code itself. So these are two ways to skin the cat. You can still go back to function if you'd like. I would prefer you personally to move towards this fat arrow It'll save you a lot of headache when we get to React when it comes to the binding of this, which drove everyone in Bravo Platoon crazy. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Yeah, it was all, I can actually explain it now.
So for the method signature, if it takes any arguments, what would they contain?
Well, let's actually take a look at that. So right now I specifically wrote functions that don't have any parameters. Let's say I create a function that has parameters. Let's do it the old school way, just to have something. We'll call it multiply, and this is going to take in some sort of parameters. What are parameters? If you had to explain to a 5-year-old.
I would say that parameters are like let's say you had a car. You can think of the function of the car as, let's say car is driving, and one of the parameters can be who is driving the car and who else is in the car. So
yeah,
you can be driving the car, but you can't necessarily drive a car without having without those parameters being filled, because if you don't have a driver, the car won't drive.
Okay, I mean, I can
If
kind
that's
of get that.
if that's the kind of car you're driving,
Oh,
then
okay.
you can have a car that doesn't have any arguments, so the driver's driving his car.
That's true. Another way to go off that car analogy, it's like if you go out to the lot and you say, I want to buy XYZ car, right? Like I want to buy, let's say I want to buy a RAV4 or something like that. If I just say I want to buy a RAV4 and I don't specify anything, they're going to give me whatever RAV4 is on the lot. But if I say specifically the parameters of what I'm asking for is I want a blue RAV4 with 15,000 miles or less, that gives them a specific, that like I'm passing in things so that my output will be a little bit different. If I just say multiply, I don't have anything in here, like this doesn't know what to do. So I need to provide it 2 numbers. So these parameters are basically variables that are you're going to be passing in yourself, and then you're going to be calling within the function. So I'm going to say I'm passing in 2 numbers. I'm just going to do return num1 times num2. So I've created a function called multiply. It takes 2 parameters in this specific order, num1 and num2. I'm going to return to the screen num1 times num2. Now I'm going to run multiply with 5 and 3. Gives me 15. If I do 5 and 5, it gives me 25. Remember that these do like whatever I pass in first will be saved as num1, and then inside the body, which is inside these curly braces, num1 is going to be substituted for whatever I type in. The same way to write this using like a fat arrow function. So I'll do like let multiply fat arrow is going to equal num1, num2. Whoops, sorry. Wait, I forgot.
That's right.
So the benefits, I'm sure, come with the functionality, no pun intended, because it's not easier to write.
Did I spell incorrectly?
Yeah.
Oh, far arrow. Okay. What's that? The functionality far outweighs the easiness of writing. Yeah. But some would argue like it's also might just be that you're not used to it at this particular point, because there is less stuff to type because I don't have to type in function.
Oh,
Yeah. So the overall there is.
It seems like more here, but sometimes it's less.
Yeah.
With the fat arrow.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, just a kind of a basic overview of JavaScript. I think tomorrow we'll cover like if-else logic and then loops and things of that nature. But I just want to make sure everyone at the very base can tell me a little bit about what a string is, which is anything inside of quotes, a boolean is anything that's true or false. We have undefined and null, any numbers, integers are whole numbers, floats are decimals, a little bit about arrays. It's a collection in a specific order. Hashes and objects and dictionaries and things like that are basically key value pair collections. And then the 2 big things I wanted to have everyone know is it's going to be let and const. So it's let something equals this can change, and then const something, this never changes.
So does that affect your error messages, the let and const?
Yep.
Okay.
When you use let, my understanding was that it is very block sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, do you just make sure you're using all of your variables correctly so that you don't need any globals, or how does that work?
var is block sensitive too.
var is not as block sensitive, which is why they did let and const. So var is, I don't want to get too much into the history of JavaScript.
All I mean is, what if you want to do a changeable global? What would you do?
You would do let.
Okay.
Yeah, because const is once it's declared. Like if I try to actually change the const here, like something equals hi, and I do something, it gives me hi. But if I do const something equals not this, it blows up. It says something has already been declared, because that is something that since it's constant, it's now global everywhere. So if you want to change a global variable, I would use let.
But what if you just did without the const something equals and then something, like to something else?
Oh, like
if you wanted to change it to,
Same thing.
okay,
Yeah, you can't assign a constant variable. I'm pretty sure
you reassign it.
You can't reassign. Yeah. Let x equal 1. X equals 2, x now becomes 2. But you couldn't do that before.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, with functions, before we had just like say anything. This is what it looked like before. And then afterwards, it's going to be let say anything equal a fat arrow function. Yo. Okay, sound good? All right, let's, so we have about 20 minutes before lunch. What we'll do is I want you all to add all of the code, like to create a pull request for def grandma in JavaScript and def grandma inside of def grandma in JavaScript and 99 bottles in JavaScript. So I will look, for me personally, I will look over here. And when I go to def grandma, I will expect to see 9 other pull requests. So I expect this to say 10. And then same thing for 99 bottles as well. One last thing, promise this time, one last thing. The last step I want everyone to add ahead of time is this fork, right? Before you clone, I want you to fork. And the reason behind that is because all of this like credit, all these little green dots that I have, let me jump over to It's John Day. Oh no. It is John Day? Yeah. So for John's stuff here, all of these little green dots and all of that kind of stuff, the reason that he got that, actually no. Oh, I guess it's not that way anymore. Okay, forget that I said anything about forking, just create pull requests. It used to be that you didn't get credit until you forked. But now when you open a pull request, you get credit. So. All right, so I think that will do it for this morning. But over the next 20 minutes, I want to make sure everyone is able to, push and clone and add and stuff like that. Any questions from remote? Cool. All right.
Not yet.
So I've got a question.